the radical integration of faith and business, a new paradigm for entrepreneurial success. Welcome to a conversation that will challenge everything you thought you knew about faith, business, and the transformative power of entrepreneurship. Today, we're diving deep into the revolutionary insights of Dr. Evelyn Bethune, a visionary leader who's carrying forward the legacy of her grandmother, the legendary Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. Dr. Evelyn isn't just preserving history. She's actively shaping the future of business and community empowerment. Her work is nothing short of groundbreaking, offering a radical reimagining of how faith and business can intertwine to create unprecedented impact. Imagine for a moment a world where your deepest values aren't compartmentalized, relegated to Sundays or personal reflection. Instead, they're the very engine driving your business success. A world where scaling your company doesn't mean compromising your principles, but amplifying them. Where profit and purpose aren't at odds, but so intertwined that one fuels the other in a virtuous cycle of growth and impact. This isn't a utopian fantasy. It's a paradigm shift that's already underway, championed by visionaries like Dr. Evelyn Bethune. And it's challenging one of the most pervasive and limiting assumptions in modern business: the idea that faith principles and strategic business growth operate in separate domains. This false dichotomy has created an unnecessary and harmful fragmentation in how faith-driven entrepreneurs approach their work. It's forced them to compartmentalize aspects of their identity that should function in powerful integration. And it's time we confronted this assumption head on. Now, the origins of this separation aren't accidental. They stem from historical developments that have profoundly shaped our understanding of business and faith. Consider how the secularization of business education created systems where faith consideration were deliberately removed from strategic frameworks. Business schools developed curriculums that treated economic activity as a value-neutral domain, severing it from moral, ethical, and spiritual considerations. This artificial division suggested that real business happens in secular spaces, while faith belongs in private or religious contexts. In response, many religious institutions created faith-based business approaches that emphasized moral considerations, but often lacked strategic rigor. These well-intentioned efforts sometimes promoted the idea that with enough prayer and good intentions, business success would naturally follow, without adequately addressing the need for strategic systems, market analysis, and operational excellence. Cultural narratives emerged suggesting that scaling a business necessarily requires compromising one's values. We've all heard stories of entrepreneurs who sold out as they grew, reinforcing the notion that authentic values and significant growth exist in tension rather than harmony. But here's the truth. This fragmentation exacts a tremendous toll on faith-driven entrepreneurs. Many remain small because they believe growth would require compromising their values and faith principles. They face a false choice between maintaining their authentic identity and achieving meaningful scale. This keeps powerful vision carriers from creating the impact they're capable of. Others attempt to navigate both worlds by compartmentalizing, being one person in business settings and another in faith contexts. This creates internal fragmentation that leads to burnout, diminished effectiveness, and a sense of inauthenticity that undermines leadership. Still, others adopt secular business strategies without filtering them through their value system, implementing approaches that subtly undermine the very communities they hope to serve. For example, implementing marketing tactics that exploit vulnerabilities rather than empowering informed decision-making. Perhaps most significantly, this separation has prevented the development of truly integrated models that could advance both business excellence and community transformation simultaneously. The forced choice between profit and purpose has artificially limited what entrepreneurship can accomplish. But here's where it gets interesting. Historical examples directly contradict this assumed separation. Consider Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, who founded a college with $1.50 during the Jim Crow era. She didn't compartmentalize her faith and her strategic approach. They were seamlessly integrated. Her spiritual principles informed her resource acquisition strategies, her approach to leadership development, and her methods for creating sustainable institutions. She didn't just pray for resources. She developed sophisticated approaches to donor cultivation. She didn't just hope for community transformation. She created economic systems that generated it systematically. Similarly, the Mondragon Corporation in Spain, founded by Catholic priest Jose Maria Arizmendiarrieta, demonstrates how faith principles can be operationalized into business structures. This network of cooperatives has created remarkable economic resilience while maintaining deep community commitment, not as separate activities, but as integrated expressions of a unified philosophy. The historical record is actually filled with examples of effective integration, yet our contemporary frameworks continue to promote separation. What's needed is a fundamental reconceptualization of how faith and business strategy relate. Rather than separate domains that occasionally intersect, they should be understood as integrated aspects of a unified approach to value creation and community transformation. This integration operates at multiple levels. At the purpose level, faith-driven entrepreneurs can recognize that profit generation isn't separate from purpose fulfillment. When properly structured, they're mutually reinforcing. Sustainable business models that create community wealth align perfectly with faith principles about stewardship and service. At the operational level, spiritual values can be encoded directly into business systems. For example, the principle of honoring human dignity can shape everything from hiring practices to customer service protocols to marketing approaches. This isn't about adding a spiritual veneer to secular strategies, but developing distinctly different approaches that achieve both business excellence and faith alignment. At the leadership level, prayer and strategic planning become complementary rather than competing activities. Discernment informs direction setting, while strategic implementation creates the pathway for vision fulfillment. Neither is sufficient alone, but together they create a powerful approach to entrepreneurial leadership. But what does this integration look like in practice? Let me share some concrete examples that Dr. Bethune highlighted in our conversation. Imagine integrated resource development approaches where faith-driven entrepreneurs develop funding models that align with their values while creating sustainable business structures. This might include community-supported financing models, transparent pricing approaches that honor customer dignity, or circular economic systems that create shared prosperity rather than concentrated wealth. Consider faith-encoded technology implementation. As businesses grow, technology becomes essential for scaling impact. However, many entrepreneurs fear technology will diminish their personal touch and values-based approach. The integrated paradigm shows how to implement digital tools in ways that actually amplify rather than diminish these aspects. encoding faith values directly into automated systems and digital touchpoints. Picture community-centered growth models where business expansion naturally generates community benefit. This isn't about growing first and giving back later, but structuring the growth itself to create opportunities, develop leaders, and build community assets. Envision strategic Sabbath principles, time management approaches that integrate faith practices with business effectiveness. For example, implementing strategic cycles of work and rest that honor both spiritual wisdom about human limitations and business research on peak performance and creativity, and consider values-based decision frameworks. Rather than making decisions on purely financial grounds and then checking them against values as a secondary consideration, integrated approaches develop decision matrices where purpose, people, planet, and profit considerations are evaluated simultaneously as interconnected factors. These aren't just theoretical concepts. Real-world examples show this integration in action. Dr. Bethune shared the story of a faith-driven marketing agency that discovered their commitment to truth-telling and client empowerment, values derived from their faith, actually became their primary competitive advantage in an industry often known for overpromising and manipulation. Their principled approach not only aligned with their values, but created better business outcomes through higher client retention and referral rates. She told me about a Black-owned financial services firm that developed community-based financial education programs, not as a separate CSR initiative, but as an integral part of their client acquisition strategy. This approach simultaneously addressed community needs for economic empowerment while creating a pipeline of informed clients, making business growth and community service mutually reinforcing rather than competing priorities. And she highlighted a technology company that structured their entire development process around their faith-based commitment to human dignity. This shaped everything from their approach to user research, to their interface design, to their data privacy practices. The result wasn't just more ethical technology, but better products that created stronger market differentiation. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds great in theory, but surely there are significant barriers to achieving this kind of integration. And you'd be right. Despite its promise, this approach faces real challenges. Most business education and support programs lack frameworks for integration, still promoting models that separate strategy from values. Faith-driven entrepreneurs must often piece together disparate elements rather than accessing comprehensive, integrated approaches. Cultural expectations about how business is done create pressure to conform to fragmented models, particularly as companies scale. Investors, partners, and even customers sometimes expect conventional approaches that perpetuate the separation. The absence of visible role models makes it difficult for entrepreneurs to envision integrated pathways to scale. Media narratives continue to highlight either purely profit-driven successes or inspiring but small social ventures, reinforcing the false dichotomy. And perhaps most insidiously, internal belief systems about money, success, and purpose that entrepreneurs themselves carry can create unconscious blockages to integration. Many faith-driven leaders have internalized the very separation they need to overcome. But here's the exciting part. Overcoming these barriers isn't just possible, it's already happening. And the entrepreneurs leading this charge aren't just building better businesses. They're helping create new economic paradigms that challenge the very assumptions that have limited business impact for too long. Dr. Bethune shared some compelling evidence that's emerging to support this integrated approach. A groundbreaking 2023 study from the Journal of Business Ethics found that businesses with deeply integrated faith values demonstrated 34% higher employee retention and 28% stronger customer loyalty compared to their secular counterparts. This research specifically examined how the integration of spiritual principles into operational systems, not just leadership rhetoric, created measurable business advantages. The explosive growth of B Corp and other purpose-driven business structures provides further evidence challenging the separation assumption. These models explicitly integrate values with business strategy, demonstrating that financial performance and purpose fulfillment can be mutually reinforcing rather than competing priorities. Perhaps most compellingly, case studies from industries ranging from healthcare to education to financial services demonstrate faith-driven organizations successfully encoding their values directly into digital systems. A faith-based healthcare network developed AI-driven diagnostic tools that prioritize holistic patient care, designing algorithms that evaluate social and spiritual factors alongside physical symptoms, creating better clinical outcomes while honoring their faith commitment to whole person care. A Black church-affiliated credit union implemented digital banking systems specifically designed to address historical barriers to wealth creation, encoding principles of community empowerment directly into their financial technology, achieving both mission advancement and significant growth. New leadership development approaches are specifically addressing the integration challenge. Programs like Praxis Labs, Faith-Driven Entrepreneur, and the Bethune Blueprint are creating comprehensive frameworks that don't just add faith considerations to conventional business approaches, but develop entirely different models that achieve integration from the ground up. These programs show how spiritual discernment practices can enhance strategic decision-making, how faith principles can shape market positioning and competitive strategy, and how seemingly opposing priorities like profitability and community impact can become synergistic through proper system design. Demographic research reveals millennial and Gen Z entrepreneurs and consumers increasingly reject the compartmentalization of previous generations. They expect authentic integration between stated values and business practices, and they're creating enterprises that reflect this integration from inception rather than treating purpose as an add-on to business strategy. This generational shift is creating market pressures that favor integrated approaches, as younger customers actively seek businesses whose operational models align with their values. The businesses that thrive in this environment aren't those that simply claim value alignment, but those that have encoded their values directly into their business models and systems. Research into the economic impact of integrated enterprises reveals they create more sustainable forms of community wealth than their fragmented counterparts. Studies of communities with high concentrations of faith-driven, purpose-aligned businesses show higher rates of asset building among vulnerable populations, stronger social cohesion metrics, and greater economic resilience during downturns. This evidence challenges the assumption that conventional profit-maximizing approaches, separated from values considerations, produce superior economic outcomes. In fact, the integrated approach appears to create more sustainable, broadly shared prosperity, aligning perfectly with the community transformation goals many faith-driven entrepreneurs prioritize. Fresh theological perspectives are emerging that directly challenge the sacred-secular division in economic activity. These interpretations revisit faith texts and traditions, to demonstrate that the separation between spiritual and commercial domains was never present in the original teachings, but emerged through later cultural distortions. For example, scholars examining the Jewish concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world, show how it was always meant to be applied to economic systems, not just charitable endeavors. Similarly, Christian theologians exploring the concept of kingdom business demonstrate how biblical texts present an integrated model of economic activity aligned with spiritual principles rather than separated from them. These theological frameworks provide faith-driven entrepreneurs with robust spiritual foundations for pursuing integration rather than compartmentalization. The COVID-19 pandemic's disruption accelerated the collapse of fragmented approaches as businesses face simultaneous challenges across human, financial, social, and ethical dimensions. Organizations with integrated approaches demonstrated remarkable resilience, precisely because they didn't have to choose between prioritizing people and ensuring financial viability. Their systems were designed to address both simultaneously. This natural experiment highlighted the limitations of fragmented models in complex multidimensional crises and showcased the adaptive advantages of integrated approaches that could respond holistically rather than sequentially to interconnected challenges. So where do we go from here? How do we move this paradigm shift from isolated examples to widespread adoption? Dr. Bethune emphasized several key areas for action. We need educational transformation, business schools, entrepreneurship programs, and religious institutions need to develop new curriculums that teach integrated approaches from the start, rather than treating faith and business as separate tracks that occasionally acknowledge each other. We must create new metrics and models. We need to develop and popularize business assessment frameworks that measure integrated success rather than evaluating financial performance separately from impact or values alignment. What gets measured shapes what gets prioritized. Community building is essential. Creating spaces where faith-driven entrepreneurs can connect with others pursuing integration provides both practical support and psychological reinforcement that challenges the prevailing fragmented paradigm. We need narrative shifting. Sharing stories of successful integration challenges the assumed separation and provides models for others to follow. These narratives need to highlight not just the what, but the how, the specific strategies that enabled integration. And perhaps most importantly, this shift requires personal development. Individual entrepreneurs must examine their own internalized assumptions about the relationship between faith and business, identifying where they themselves are perpetuating unnecessary separation. The assumption that faith principles and strategic business approaches belong in separate domains has created artificial limitations that constrain both business impact and community transformation. By challenging this assumption and developing truly integrated models, faith-driven entrepreneurs can discover pathways to scale that don't require compromise, but actually amplify their values. This integration isn't just important for individual business success. It has profound implications for addressing broader social and economic challenges. As faith-driven entrepreneurs develop models that generate both profit and purpose simultaneously, they create alternative economic approaches that can address persistent inequality, environmental degradation, and community disintegration. The entrepreneurs who successfully navigate this integration won't just build better businesses, they'll help create new economic paradigms that challenge the very assumptions that have limited business impact for too long. In doing so, they'll demonstrate that the most powerful entrepreneurial approach isn't choosing between faith and strategy, but discovering how they work together as a unified force for transformation. Dr. Evelyn Bethune's insights challenge us to reimagine what's possible when we refuse to compartmentalize our values and our business acumen. She invites us to consider, what could you achieve if your faith wasn't just a personal practice, but the very foundation of your business strategy? How might your impact multiply if your spiritual values were encoded into every aspect of your operations? The world doesn't need more entrepreneurs who leave their values at the door when they enter the boardroom. It needs leaders who bring their whole selves to the task of building businesses that generate prosperity and purpose in equal measure. It needs you, fully integrated, unapologetically faith-driven, and strategically brilliant. So I challenge you, don't settle for the false choice between faith and business success. Reject the narrative that says you must compromise to scale. Instead, embark on the courageous journey of integration. Develop business models that amplify your values. Create operational systems that encode your spiritual principles. Build enterprises that generate profit and purpose simultaneously. The future of faith-driven entrepreneurship isn't about finding balance between competing priorities. It's about discovering the powerful synergy that emerges when we refuse to separate what was always meant to be integrated. It's about building businesses that don't just reflect our values, but magnify them in ways that transform communities and challenge entire economic systems. You have the power to be part of this paradigm shift, to create enterprises that defy the old categories and showcase what's possible when faith and strategy work in perfect harmony. The world is waiting for the unique impact that only you, fully integrated and courageously authentic, can create. So let me leave you with this final challenge. What would it look like if you completely dismantled the walls between your faith and your business strategy? If you allowed your deepest values to inform every aspect of your operations, from your mission statement to your marketing tactics to your management style, imagine the ripple effects if every decision you made in your business was filtered through the lens of your spiritual principles. How might that change the way you interact with employees, customers, and competitors? How might it reshape your approach to growth, to profit, to success itself? This isn't just about personal fulfillment or even individual business success. This is about nothing less than rewriting the rules of our economic system. It's about proving that there's a better way to do business, one that doesn't force us to choose between our values and our ambitions, between making a profit and making a difference. The world is crying out for a new economic paradigm, one that doesn't treat people as commodities or the planet as an endless resource to be exploited, one that recognizes the inherent dignity of every individual and the interconnectedness of all things. You have the power to be at the forefront of creating that paradigm. So I urge you, don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the right time. The world can't afford for you to play small or to compartmentalize your impact. Start today. Start where you are. Begin the process of radical integration in your own life and business. Ask yourself, what's one area where I've been keeping my faith separate from my business strategy? How can I begin to integrate them today? What would it look like to make my next business decision from a place of complete alignment with my deepest values. And then take action. Be bold. Be unapologetic. Be willing to challenge the status quo and to face the discomfort that comes with blazing a new trail. Because make no mistake, this path of integration isn't always easy. It will require courage. It will demand creativity. It will push you to grow in ways you never imagined. But that's exactly why it's so powerful. Because as you do this work of integration, you're not just building a better business, you're becoming a better leader, a more authentic human being, and you're creating a model that can inspire and empower others to do the same. Remember the words of Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. The progress of the world will call for the best that all of us have to give. The best that you have to give isn't your business acumen separate from your faith, or your spiritual wisdom divorced from your strategic thinking. The best you have to give is the fully integrated, authentically aligned version of yourself, bringing all of who you are to the vital work of transforming our world through ethical, impactful entrepreneurship. So go forth, integrate, innovate, and show us all what's possible when faith isn't just a personal practice, but the very engine of business transformation. The future of entrepreneurship, and perhaps our communities themselves, depends on it. The time for fragmentation is over. The era of integration has begun. And you, yes, you, have a crucial role to play in ushering it in. Will you answer the call? Thank you